Shut up and sit down.
Welcome back to this week's Tiki Sessions live from Kon-Tiki Bar here in Portrush. This week we have an amazing guest on with us, and Ash, you've made something really special for
I
him.
have indeed. We've got a really special guest. We've got local legend Brian Moore here. Brian wanted a nice, refreshing mocktail. You've asked me to be as flamboyant as possible. So I have tried my best, Brian, and I have made you. This is normally our sharing vessel, but since COVID's about.
Local legend, I like that.
Local legend, yeah,
I can't
exactly.
wait to meet me.
So just finish this off for you, and it's a mixture of fresh lemon, fresh lime, a little bit of grenadine, and I'll get you a wee straw. The only thing I don't have is a nice umbrella for you, Brian, so you can sit and sip that as the thing goes on. But yeah, enjoy it.
Wonderful.
Welcome along, Brian. I'm so delighted you're here. And
You run out of glasses or what?
yeah, exactly. So we're using suitcases instead now. Thanks for coming along to Tiki Sessions, Brian.
I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome.
This is great setup. It's wonderful.
So Brian, I've known you probably about 20 years plus, maybe, so I have.
You're right.
Yeah, through the events industry and through work we've done together. So there's a lot I want to talk to you about tonight, and Ash and myself were talking beforehand, and we were going through all that we know about you, and you've had a phenomenal career and still ongoing. So let's go right back to the start. So where are you originally from, and how did you get into the entertainment industry?
Right, I'm originally from Belfast. I was in the bank, didn't like it. Started in mobile discos. Started in Kelly's, I think the year was 1835. I then became entertainment manager of said venue and brought people like Thin Lizzy, Mungo Jerry, Bay City Rollers.
Wow.
Complete contrast back in the day to here, to Kelly's. Then after that, I had a spell in Scandinavia, and I came back. I was DJing in Scandinavia.
Sounded like he was in prison there or something. Brief stint. Brief stint over there for 2 years.
I had this guy kept saying to me, you should go out to Denmark, you'd love it out there. And I said, get out of here, I don't speak Danish, what would I be doing that for? So I went out for a long weekend with him, and he showed me around, and it was just beautiful. And they were fascinated by English-speaking DJs. So then I didn't want to do another winter in Portrush, so I headed out to Scandinavia and did Denmark and Norway, mainly Norway.
Brilliant.
And then my tax rate would have doubled, so you left Scandinavia and came back for 1 calendar month. And so I came back to Northern Ireland, and James asked me to stay on. James, the late great James Kelly, asked me to stay on. But then I moved to the Strand in Port Stewart.
Right, nice.
I didn't
Another
go back to
great venue.
Scandinavia. Yeah, and Strand was such a busy. People don't realise it was 6 nights a week, that place, because it was 3 nights to the general public, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday there were student gigs on. So such a busy venue.
And was that when the Lockeries were running it back then at that stage?
Yes, I went with the previous owners, and then Plug and the Lockeries and so forth bought it over, and they asked me to become general manager of it. So you came down to breakfast, and there was me saying, well, had you a good night and all the rest of it. In the afternoon, if there's a wedding on, I was, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for your bride and groom. And then you went down into the club at night, and there was me spinning tunes.
Brilliant.
It's the Strand Hotel.
Crazy time.
I worked in the Edgewater, and everyone talked about the Strand Hotel like it was the best thing ever. Like a lot of my family, like mum and dad, worked there, and it seemed to be a real institution. To go right back though, Brian, just a wee bit. So like the likes of Mungo Jerry and Thin Lizzy you're booking for here. How difficult? Like what year is this? Times of troubles, or is it was it hard to get those artists in Northern Ireland? Or?
Yes, that was a big thing then. Getting people to come to Northern Ireland was not easy.
Yeah.
I always said, actually, if you brought in a guest DJ, and this is still the case, if you brought in a guest DJ or act or whatever, one of the first things they notice is the lack of traffic.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They can't believe, how not busy it is on the roads and so forth. That's the first thing that fascinates them. But if you got somebody to come in during the troubles, they couldn't wait to come back, because there were two things. we are a naturally friendly people. I mean, we might fall out amongst ourselves and knock hell out of each other because of religion or whatever it might be, but we are a warm people.
Yeah.
So somebody arriving from another country, we're very welcoming. And then most of us, except the odd idiot, were very embarrassed at our image abroad because of the troubles. I mean, us guys, we wanted nothing to do with it, you know. But to use that well-worn microphone line, and in every bunch of roses, you'll get a few pricks.
And again, like North Coast, I think that religion, politics, all that seems to be out of the mix, and that
seems a world away, doesn't
yeah,
it?
it's lovely.
Great, and I've always said, you know, if there's anywhere I wanted to bring my kids up, it would be on the North Coast, because I was born in '78, grew up in the '80s. I was in Belfast when stuff happened, and on the North Coast, it just seemed like this sort of bubble that, you know, everybody got on with each other, and, you know, religion wasn't a big thing, and there wasn't a lot of trouble.
We didn't like you.
You didn't like me? Well, Brian, you know, I've spent 20 years working on that, so I have. Interestingly enough, but...
this is very nice.
Brilliant, Brian, good lad. Tell everybody about it.
Interestingly enough, that's the first time I've heard that you worked in Kelly's, because most people, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but most people would know you more from your history and tracks.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Well, I went from the Strand, and then I was doing a line of dates for a brewery, Bass Ireland, as it used to be known.
Yeah.
I was fronting a show for them, and at the same time I owned a little cafe in Coleraine. I'd opened that. But then Tracks approached me, and I went there back in the days of the Crawfords. And in my opinion, and I don't mean to take away from the people who had it last, but my opinion, those first few years that I was there when the Crawfords owned it, despite what happened later, it was the best nightclub ever in the country. It was early days when
what stage of music is this, Brian? Is it like is this when the rave scene is starting to come up, or is it?
Not quite.
Okay.
At that time, if I'd said to Roy, look, Roy, there's a great effect, I think we should get it, and blah, 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 he'd install it, you know, so it was great because at the end of the day, we're all big wins.
Yeah.
You know,
You want toys to play with, yeah.
We really are. And we used to do a light show that happened at 10 o'clock, and it became a feature of the club. You had to be in for the light show, and the volume was kept down, the lights were kept on dim, and then at 10 o'clock, boom, the music of The Exorcist or whatever would come in, and all these lights gone off and smoke.
That's funny. Now, if you did that now, you'd have to do the light show at about 1:45.
You would.
So you would, because nobody goes out until about midnight
Absolutely.
now. You know?
Absolutely. It's all changed.
And again, you booked some pretty major acts into Tracks over the years.
Yeah, well...
Who would have been your favourite, and were there any that were a wee bit awkward? And I remember you telling me a story about one pretty well-known band at one stage that you tried, that were meant to play, I think.
To be honest, in all my years in the game, and it's coming up to 94 years now, in all my years in the game, there were very few I found awkward. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I know exactly who you mean. I'll never forget them. I never really had any problem with any act. You hear of these prima donnas and all the rest of it. There were a couple of quite good stories in that. I got a phone call asking me if I'd like to have Sister Sledge in the company, in the club, in the company.
So these people are phoning you. It's not like you're going off trying to get them.
No, I got a phone call from an agent, and what had happened was so far as I remember, they'd had a cancellation in England, and whoever was looking after that tour phoned round a few people, and presumably this guy in Belfast thought, I know who might be interested. Brilliant. And he phoned me.
Brilliant.
And it was quite short notice, and I took the date, and at that time a whole retro thing was going on in the club, so I thought Sister Sledge, and a lot of people are sampling We Are Family and so forth, you know. So I thought this will be really good, and we got them slightly reduced fee, but still very expensive. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing, the contract arrived, and the agent from Belfast, he phoned me up, Brian, I'm sending you through this contract now, click. make sure you're sitting down when you read it. And this contract arrived, and if we had adhered to everything in the contract, it would have probably trebled the price, because it was, I don't remember specifically, but it was things like leopard skin wallpaper, and
Their writer was crazy, yeah.
there had to be a case of champagne, fresh orange juice, lager, blah 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 blah. And I was so annoyed. I thought, we're taking this act at short notice. I'm doing none of this. Whenever they arrive, we'll do our usual, because I have to say, tracks right throughout its history, they were always very hospitable to the acts and looked after them. So anyway, on the night, the limousine arrived with Sister Sledge, and the first thing, and this is going to sound really corny, but it's a fact nevertheless, Sister Sledge stepped out, and the first thing that took me by surprise, they were sisters. I thought Sister Sledge, like sister. Well, I thought it was just a name, because it's got a nice, it's got a nice ring to it. And the three girls got out, and ladies, and we brought them up and into the dressing room. I had that you could access straight off the road and into the dressing room and tracks, and brought them straight in. I said, ladies, what would you like to drink? We'll get it organised, whatever. I said, and they said, well, gee, we don't actually drink. They were from Wales. We don't actually drink. If you could just get us some water and have some water on the stage, that'd be really cool. And also, and I thought, here we go. He said they were staying overnight with Billy and Lily in this hotel.
Oh, the Causeway.
I knew Billy and Lily would do a great job of looking after them. They did. And they said, also, we're staying overnight, I believe. I said, yes, you are. You're in a very nice, blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, if you could tell us where we could worship tomorrow morning, that would be really cool.
Wow.
So the congregation in the Catholic Church at the bottom of Causeway Street got the shock of their lives when Sister Sledge walked in the next morning.
Fantastic.
That's an incredible story. So they didn't care about the wallpaper? That's probably
They
something.
didn't care. That was their American management,
Having worked at gigs in the Odyssey and stuff, from what I can gather, a lot of the writer is just left in the room at the end of the night.
Yeah.
It's just this, I've listened to interviews with bands, and they're like, so what type of writer do you have? And they're like, right, well, we want this, we want that, and they're just like, right, what else can we put in for the crack? And there's one band, I can't remember who it is, and they ask for very little, but what they do specify is that they want authentic signed Star Wars memorabilia, which I was like, that's the type of thing I would do. Yeah. Whereas there are ones like, we want pink flamingos or whatever, So they were great to work with, and obviously went down a storm in tracks. Who wasn't?
The worst act, head and shoulders above the whole lot. The worst act I ever came across was Scooter.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Absolutely, yeah.
I actually imagine tracks and Scooter to go hand in hand, because did he not DJ quite a lot of tracks, or was it once or twice just?
You're making the error that a lot of people make. Scooter's actually three main people on stage. Okay. A lot of people think it's just one guy. Right. So Scooter's entourage arrived at 10:30 in the morning and gave me hell from 10:30 in the morning until nighttime. And then their German manager arrived, or road manager, or whatever the heck he was, arrived and said, they're not going on stage. And you don't have a toilet in the changing room.
Oh,
and at that place, the place was under renovation. And it's a long story, but the band were there and wouldn't go on stage.
You've brought loads of acts.
Yeah, I have a contract somewhere for 500 quid for Tiesto.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I must get that up on eBay sometime.
Yeah.
But there was some. I mean, Sash was a great DJ. Also brought a stage show. We did the Ibiza nights. They were infamous. The foam parties, etc., etc. Des Mitchell would have been a big favourite back in the day, and I wish Des was still coming to Northern Ireland.
Were you involved with the scratch competitions? Was it Run DMC and?
Well, what happened there was late 80s, early 90s. I became the Northern Ireland rep for DMC.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud to be able to say, and if you don't believe me, ask DJ X-Ray, because he credits me with this. And the first DJ to play dance music in Northern Ireland. I started doing the stuff for DMC, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, Ash, but essentially they supply DJs with special mixes of stuff. So I became the Northern Ireland rep for that. So I used to fly over every year to work at the World DJ Mixing Championships. Now that was sometimes in the Royal Albert Hall.
Wow.
All the big nightclubs, and it lasted for 3 days, you know, with the elimination heats and so forth. And then the World Championships, Royal Albert Hall. The last one I did was in Wembley Arena.
Wow.
And what they did was they had contestant 1, contestant 2, 3, 4, etc. So they had an area in between, and while the contestants were setting up, they would have a PA come on. So I'm very proud to be able to say I rubbed shoulders on those stages with James Brown.
I was watching
Whitney
that
Houston,
video today, so it was with James Brown coming on. And
Whitney Houston as well.
Snap, Run DMC, Alexander O'Neill. I couldn't begin to tell you the number of people that we showcased at.
That's phenomenal. So
And is that still going? Is that something that still happens, or is that fizzled
It
out?
still happens. It's online at the minute because of COVID. If you look up dmcworld.com, you'll find it all there. It's a massive company owned by a guy called Tony Prince, who was originally with Radio Luxembourg back in the day.
Nice.
he's an English guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems a shame to me because at that time, like probably whenever I was starting to go out to clubs, and it probably shouldn't have been, but like there was a lot of brands involved with heavily promoting that stuff and throwing a lot of money at it. But like the Corona,
He's trying to make out he's younger than he is.
Exactly.
Don't let the hair fool you.
Carry on.
Nobody believes he's actually 2 years older than me, so he is, you know. Yeah.
but like all those sort of things. 'Cause I remember the
50 Shades of
Corona.
Grey.
Well, that's me and him together. Probably.
Exactly.
The Corona, I remember Corona firing money at those DJ competitions. You know, Alan Johnson and stuff like
Yeah,
Ing Bing.
Bing Bing, yeah.
And all those guys got, like, there was so much money available to help promote that. And at the minute, there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of budget from drinks companies. And
No.
it's kind of all underground these days again. But maybe that might drive a bit of a different vibe. I don't know.
Do you think the nightclub industry is dead and it's more pub and stuff like that and house parties now? Or do you think there is still a place for the big clubs?
Well, it's gone really to festivals.
Yeah, true.
Experiential
Festivals.
Yeah, nightclubs, you know, it could all change overnight. We don't know, because who could have predicted that the drinking habits would change so much? The big factor that changed nightclubs, in my opinion, and it was positive, but it had its negative effects, was the smoking ban.
Smoking, yeah.
Because I mean, when I started DJing, you would have taken an audience from there, and you would have taken them up to there, and then switch off. You always leave an audience asking for more. But now it's you're DJing away, and you're trying to bring people up, and the next thing they're off out to the smoking area. So you've lost the thread, lost the continuity, as well as that dilutes the size of your crowd, and all sorts of negative factors. And then, and I was as much to blame for this as anybody else. In tracks, we introduced a second room. So we had a trance room, and then with the R&B, we called it the Fat Club, as in PHAT. The R&B room, which was, I often describe it, was full of girls trying to be as naked as possible. It's that kind of music, it really is, you know. So there are different rooms and different genres of music now. So that has had a profound effect as well.
I think for me, the biggest thing has been the emergence of the smartphone. Like, I remember being in this outlet, down in the sink and in Lush, sweating buckets, sweat dripping off the walls. And if people had took photos of us or our mates or whatever, I don't think I'd ever got a job. And like the states that I would have been in here. And I think that having witnessed young people in particular on their smartphones, and they're sitting at the end of the night pristine because they're scared of getting sweaty.
Everything's about the Instagram picture.
And that's what worries me about the future, like clubbers. But then there's this sort of underground ravers that are still going off and having a bit of crack. But I think the smartphones for me have killed it because people are too concerned with how they look and how they're perceived.
Well, you see, that's what I said, could change overnight. You could get, for example, somebody will come up with an idea to make a club incredibly popular, and it will be tomorrow's popular club. And they will sneak in some device, they'll make it's the club you want to be at, so people will go there. because crowds attract crowds, etc. So it'll become fantastically popular, and they'll sneak in some technology that'll wipe out phone signals.
That would be nice. I'd go to
You
that
know,
club.
That,
Well, that's it. Well, Noel Gallagher now does it, that no mobile phones are allowed in his gigs and stuff like that. So moving on from nightclubs and stuff, you do a lot of external outdoor events, indoor events, MC a lot of events, play music at a lot of events. What have been some of the best events you've done? And obviously, tragically, over the last year and a half, 16 months, the events industry has been decimated across the entire world pretty much, but especially left behind by politicians and government within in the UK. So going back then, so what sort of events are you into, or have you worked on? What have you enjoyed? And also, what do you feel about the future for live events at the moment and what's happened in the last year?
Last year, of course, nothing happened. I mean, I had a full diary, and I hadn't moved into becoming a sort of one-man stop. If you were running an event and say it's a food event, but they want entertainment on it, it's sort of, right, Brian, that's your problem. So I will book all the acts, I'll present it, I will arrange whatever they need, be it stage, sound, lights, whatever, you know. I'll book all that for the people, so they have no worry whatsoever. It's all presented. So I was doing that for some great high-profile acts. I was doing Pirates off Portrush, marvellous event. I can't wait for that one to come back.
It was such a family-oriented, it was a class thing, actually, our kids loved it.
And the traders in Portrush loved it as well, because it really did bring the families in early in the season, you know, so they got behind it as well. It was great for them. Excuse me. A lot of preparation work had been done for a full diary. Portrush Raft Race, Northwest 200, Causeway Coast Truck Fest, all these things, the Big Splash. I mean, I was doing events as far away as Kilkeel, places, and the Big Splash in Port Glenone, as I say. A whole lot of different events, and all of a sudden, bang, they were all gone, you know. And then for people like myself as well, you'd done a lot of preparation work for that, because obviously a lot of that is sitting on your computer or making phone calls and putting together stage plans, etc., etc. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that people don't see. And you can't go to the people and say, well, I know this virus has stopped the gig, but you know, I've done all this work, what about paying me?
Yeah.
Because they would turn around and say, I was a bit shaky, it wasn't our fault the event was killed, you know, and we'll not be using him again, you know. So you don't get anything for that either. So it's been just terrible for people like myself, for musicians. I got a phone call from one of the main channels, TV channels. They were wanting to do a program on musicians who were getting it hard hit. Excuse me. So I made a few phone calls and lined up a few people, and I was truly shocked. There were people, you know, they were full-time musicians, or one guy was a vocalist, and his income was wiped out. And because he hadn't been doing that long, he didn't have any figures for the tax man. And similarly, he wasn't that highly qualified. So if he went for other jobs, other people were getting one. He was really on the breadline.
There's an awful lot of people in that position, like all throughout hospitality. And I know live music in particular, because it has just been left behind so much. And like, without getting too negative, you look at the football, the Euros and stuff like that, and people getting together, and people can't dance at a wedding, or they can't have indoor music, and there seems to be a bit of.
But that's stopped today. Live music is allowed back now with no limitations on volume or anything, because it was ambient. But today they've announced that they're removing that for indoor music, like, you know,
in Northern Ireland.
In Northern Ireland, it was announced there just before I came out, so it was from Stormont today, which is great, because, you know, we were talking to Paula McIntyre in a previous Tiki session, and you know, she was doing stuff with Big Telly theatre company with Zoe Seaton, and she was saying, you know, something that was great about that was it was giving actors employment, you know, by doing online Zoom classes and stuff, you know. So have you any events lined up, or events starting to come back? Yeah,
well, I mean, I've proposals in with people, and I have a big one in with the council actually, but I'm very pleased to hear what you've just said, because the council are holding back, can't give you a yes on anything, and you can't blame them. They more than
And this
anybody.
is me
They're
just thinking out
subject
loud
to
here,
the
Brian.
rules,
So is the
you know.
Airwaves going ahead this year, or is that?
No, it wasn't meant to be going ahead this
Are
year.
they doing it every
anyway.
other year? Is that right?
Every other year
Yeah.
is the
Right, cool.
plan, so far as I know.
Okay. It was a brilliant event. It's a cracker.
I was
Well-
actually looking at a photograph of you today, back to Star Wars, with a load of stormtroopers and all down at it. Like, you know.
Sounds a bit weird.
Doesn't it?
Well, not in your life, Brian. I'm sure it's just another
A-
day.
Anybody that knows the Tiki sessions know I Facebook stalk everybody before they come on, so they do.
Yeah.
But Airwaves, like I was involved with Airwaves right back at the start, doing all the video work and the promo work and stuff like that for it, and it is a fantastic event. And whenever it was announced that they were pulling it, I was like, that's a crazy decision. But then obviously they came back, and I know the money that's involved in putting it on, and I know the logistics of it as well. You know, so it's great to see that it will hopefully be coming back.
Well, people, they got a lot of stick for cancelling it, but at the same time they're getting stick for holding it because it costs a lot of money to put on. What people don't realise is the likes of, let's say, the Waterfront Hall in Belfast. I don't think that's ever made money, but Belfast City Council will chip in with money because they know that if there's a show with 500 people, even if it loses money, those 500 people are staying in the hotels that are paying the rates, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So the money goes round the circle. So the air show, whilst it cost a lot of money to put on, it was bringing people into the area who were spending money, who were staying overnight and all the rest of it. And unfortunately, a lot of the trolls on Facebook or whatever just haven't caught on to that.
It's the same with the golf. Whenever the
Yeah.
British Open came, and you know, it really annoys me. And everybody has their own opinions, and everybody's allowed are entitled to their own opinions. But it really annoys me whenever people are like, the golf costs so much and it brought nothing to Portrush, and I'm like, that's so wrong, because it's not about what happens the 2 weeks or the week of the event or the month of the event. It's about the 10-year legacy after
Absolutely.
of the American. Now, and as Alan Simpson was saying, we were about to reap the rewards of it and COVID hit, but you know, it's coming back again hopefully, and you know, it's the 10 years after, and I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I'd also put in a little barb there. I was working at events in Portrush for the Open, and I went to get a meal at 5:20 because I was doing an
You're down
afternoon
at West
session.
Strand, down
No,
at
this
the
was
Green.
on Kerr Street Green.
Yeah, on the Green, yeah.
So I had finished doing what I was doing in the afternoon. I had a bit of a break, and then I had to do stuff that night, including the fireworks and all. And so I went to get a meal in one of the restaurants at 5:20, and they were closing up. And I said, "Really?" And they said, "Oh yes, we always close at this time." And then I went. I got somewhere else, got something to eat. I was pretty furious, I have to say. I thought it was a ridiculous attitude. So then I went and I did the evening bit for the council and did the fireworks and so forth, and was travelling back around the town, and every eating establishment was packed to the doors.
And for me, that's brilliant, because like, it does bring so much to the area. And without getting too controversial, there seems to be the same people that pump money into those events. So, like, I think Gareth Witherow, who I know pretty well, Newbridge and Tides always put things in.
He
Kelly's
absolutely
obviously-
does.
And even Truckfest, Gareth does an awful lot with,
Yeah.
and sponsoring Korean Football Club. Kelly's have obviously been very good. B&E Security, lots of like smaller businesses in North Coast pumping in, but there's a lot of guys out there who could probably dip their hand in the pocket. I know Morelli's are brilliant as well.
Morelli's are great, yeah.
And like all those
I think we
Tracks
actually,
for that matter, yeah.
did the Morelli's world record together.
We
you?
did.
Yeah,
We did.
You
It's
were
the
at
ice
that.
cream world
The
record.
ice cream world record. I was on the roof.
2011.
I was on the roof of the school with a camera filming it for Guinness to make sure that it was legit. You know, it was
So
some day.
most amount, what was it?
Most amount of people licking ice cream at the
At the
same
one time.
or something.
Yeah.
I think
Nearly-
it's got a better official title than that.
nearly 3,000 people, but the Guinness Book of Records, they oversaw it, you know, and they stipulated how it had to be done. So you had all these people on Dominican College hockey pitch, all fenced in, and they were wearing Morelli's t-shirts with a charity they were supporting. They raised a lot of money for charity. Another example
Yeah.
of Morelli's.
Yeah.
But you had to feed the person
To-
on your right hand
Aye,
side.
that's right. You had to
God, imagine that before coronavirus.
Yeah.
Imagine actually being beside somebody for a start.
But that also meant if you're feeding the person on your right hand side, that meant the person on your left hand side was feeding you.
Why was that?
So that's what Guinness said. So you had close on 3,000 people with ice cream everywhere, their hair all over their face.
But it was a fantastic event. And then there was the music down the Crescent that evening as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there was.
I was going to say that about Airwaves actually. Airwaves is a busy one for me because I do the stuff for the council Saturday and Sunday, and there's a commentator for the air show, and then I do music and chat in between. And then I jump into the motor and I rush to Port Stewart, and we do the Airwaves concert in Port Stewart.
That's it.
And pyrotechnic, like light show and stuff you've done the last year has been great.
Honestly, the council, because they are so busy doing Airwaves, they kind of write, Brian, what do you do for us? And I've booked the bands for them, etc. And it was the centenary of the RAF, so we did this sound effects and so forth with the fireworks of dam busters, etc.
It was absolutely brilliant. I was down that night. It was class.
And similarly, the night of the Open, I really liked that because Genius Brian noticed
legend, yeah,
noticed that the Saturday night of the Open, it was 50 years since man walked on the moon.
Right.
Exact date.
Wow.
So I did a mix of music for, we have a lift off, 10. We did the whole space thing and Star Wars and War of the Worlds, all mixed into one,
And that's the great thing about the North Coast. Like, just the infrastructure that we have is perfectly placed for live events outside. So they are, we've got the Crescent. I remember the Northwest 200 Nathan Carter gig down at Ramore Head there. And you've the open stuff and Kerr Street Green and all of that. And there's so many natural places to have an event. Now, I did try to put on Brian Kennedy in the grounds of Dominican, but I couldn't get the Board of Governors to pass that. But again, I thought that would be a phenomenal venue, overlooking the sea with the castle in the background and all. And the hockey pitch there is just perfect, and the location of it, the whole thing's perfect for an event. But we have to remember it is a school as well, So what's the future hold for you then, Brian?
Well, the phone's going. There's a bit of confidentiality in these things. I can't, I'm being asked to plan things and
brilliant, that's good.
Getting on with it, Everybody's cautious. You just don't know. There could be another lockdown, whatever. We've learnt not to be too optimistic, I think. Mm-hmm. But the future's looking rosy enough, I have to say.
Great.
Excellent.
And it's really good that with more and more announcements coming and everybody getting their double jabs and stuff like that, hopefully we're on the close to the reopening of everything and close to what is going to be the new normal.
There'll be a magic as well as some of the DJs. People have missed out a year or two of their lives here. To bringing back some of those DJs and so forth. I was on the line actually trying to see. There's one DJ we had in tracks whom I would love to get back, and he was just on the verge of becoming very big. DJ Van Gogh.
Yeah.
He was just terrific. He finished his set and I went over to him and I said, that was marvellous. Can I get you a drink? And he said, I've got one here.
And the silence was perfect there because that's a typical Brian Moore joke. So
that's a good way to end this.
Exactly. And see me going, I know that DJ.
Yeah.
No clue.
I'm glad I didn't know him.
So, very last question then, Brian. Is there any plans for another Tracks reunion? Because the last one was a huge success.
There have been two. I don't know. I get asked that all the time. The reason I put on the last one actually is because 3 different people around the country, one of whom had never DJ'd in Tracks in his life, were going to run Tracks reunions because there was a bit of a buzz about reunions for a while, but it's kind of died off. So I don't know. Some locals in Portrush want a Shunters reunion.
Well, if anybody wants a reunion, put some comments on the YouTube on the Tiki sessions here, and we'll see what appetite there is for you, Brian.
Okay.
garner a bit of interest. for you.
Exactly. Listen, Brent, thanks so much for giving up your time and
It's
coming
all
on
a
and seeing us
pleasure.
tonight.
Pleasure having you,
Pleasure.
man. Thank
Been
you.
great to catch up with you.